boy's back. Your boy, Philanthropy and Focus. Philanthropy and Focus. Tommy D, nonprofit sector connector. 5 days out from the 12th annual Long Island Imagine Awards. So, got to make a shout out. The categories: diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. You have the MLK Center, Long Beach, the LGBT Network, SEO Family Services, Women's Diversity Network. That is the Bethpage Federal Credit Union category for diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. Serini and Associate Social Impact Award, Bethany House, Rise Life Services, SEO Family Services, and the Winter Center for Autism. Man, there are so many friends we have in the nonprofit sector. The Sir Tillman Ballin Leadership Excellence Award, ACLD, Hair We Share, New Ground LGBT Network, then the Claire Friedlander Foundation Arts and Cultural Award. You have the four finalists there: Art League of Long Island, Co-Dance Co. They've been on the show. Gold Coast Art Center, the Spirit of Huntington Art Center. You know them on the board. You know they've been on the program. Then you have the Flag Star Bank Innovation Award, DDI, which is Developmental Disabilities Institute. Green Inside and Out, America's Vet Dogs, and again, Spirit of Huntington Art Center. That's in the Innovation Award. We're going to talk about artwork some point. Got to get Mike Katakis back on the show. And then the Vanguard Benefits. Oh, that's us. Vanguard Benefits Rising Star Award. Don't forget, you have Birthday Wishes of Long Island, Hair We Share, the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, and Little St. Nick Foundation. Shout out to all of these incredible finalists. This is all going on this Wednesday night, May 1st, at Crest Hollow Country Club right here on Long Island. 12th Annual Imagine Awards. You know I've been involved with the Imagine Awards for a long time. By the way, shout out to the New York City Imagine Awards because the applications are open right now, which is going to bring me to my guest in a second because she works in the city school system. So we're going to get Amy connected to that. Amy Hamlin is here. Amy, but let me keep ranting, but let me say good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I am incredible. In every meaning of that word this morning, incredible. You know, you say that word, it could mean things are awesome or things are otherwise. And I'll just say I am incredible today. The last thing I want to mention before we go back to the New York City Imagine Awards, again, the conversation with Amy is Jovia Financial Credit Union, where I was with them last night at Crest Hollow Country Club, will be inducting the Viscardi Center into the Hall of Fame for the Long Island Imagine Awards. New York City Imagine Awards gang, go to the New York City Imagine Awards website, which I will get for you right now in real time. nycimagineawards.com, nycimagineawards.com. If you're a nonprofit that you sit on the board of, that you volunteer for, that you are involved with in any way, that you're the executive leader of, if you do any work in the five boroughs of New York City, you should go to nycimagineawards.com and go ahead and fill out an application. If you can't figure out what the details are that you need to add, reach out to me. I've done some of these. I've read thousands of these applications over the years. Send me a note, Tommy D at philanthropyinfocus.com. And that's with a PHOCUS in focus, because why else would it be any other way? Amy, I'm fired up. We got to send a shout out to Steven Sivich, who introduced us. I only met him one time, and he told me about his vegan comedy club, a vegan restaurant that he's involved with. He's an attorney. He's a friend now. I know he's been a friend of yours and connected to your organization. I met him through the gang at the Queens Chamber of Commerce, who were always looking out for making relationships and connections. And there was a bunch of folks that we met, folks in the real estate trades, folks in the legal trades, and one guy who's in the nonprofit world. And they put us all in a room together, and we got to spend some time together. And I mentioned this other show I do, the Professionals and Animal Lovers show. And I am not a vegan, I'm not a vegetarian, but we do that other show, and it's all about animal advocacy. And I had mentioned that show, and everybody's going, I love dogs. I love dogs. All these adult men talking about how much they love dogs in a room in a cigar bar one night. But the point of the matter is, I mentioned that, and that's something that stuck with Steven. So he said, I got to get you connected to Amy. And really, that's how we're here. If it's not for relationships, if it's not for connections, to be honest with you, I'm just a good looking guy with a hat on. You know, if it isn't for my connections and my relationships. But in all honesty, Amy, I'm glad you're here. We had a couple conversations this week and one last week as well. Fired up to see you on the show. I just want to learn from you today. You know, I want to learn about what your organization does. I want to learn about the impact of the organization. That's what my listeners come and show up for all the time is, what is this person about? What are they doing? What is their organization doing? And how are they helping and changing the world? And then, like I said to you last night when we were talking, after that, it's how can we help you, Amy? How can we help your organization continue to do the great work that it's doing? Gang, if you want to follow along later on, go to healthyfood.org, healthyfood.org. The organization is the Coalition for Healthy School Food, and their leader is Amy Hamlin. Amy, good morning again. I'm so happy you're here.
I am so happy to be here too. So thank you for having me, and thank you, Stephen, for connecting us.
Absolutely, man. It's all about the power of connection. So tell me about this organization. Why are you on this journey? Why does this organization exist? I assume there was some sort of catalyst, maybe in your life or in your circle, and something happened. So tell me, start us off there, please.
Okay. Well, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in counseling. And I've been working in nonprofits since 1996, originally with tobacco control and then with environmental organizations. But I was drawn to this work because of my stepson, who had no vegan options to eat in school. And the school menus, whether you're vegan or not, the school menus were always meat and cheese as the main dish. And really, research is very clear that the more whole food, plant-based foods that we eat, the healthier we are, the less of all these diet-related diseases, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancer, many autoimmune illnesses. And so the bottom line is we should be moving in that direction, not only for our health, but for climate change. The biggest thing any individual can do for climate change is adopt a vegan diet or at least move in that direction. It's very much an equity issue. And of course, the animals really suffer to be raised for food and then slaughtered for food. So I am just passionate about this. I came to this because of my mom worked in the local SPCA, the local animal shelter. And when she first got that job, talking about the guys who love their dogs, right?
Hmm.
Um, when my mom first got that job, she inherited a very unfortunate situation that 90% of the dogs and cats that came in never left. This was because people were irresponsible. They didn't spay or neuter their animals or let them loose or whatever. And the machine that they used to kill the animals was a decompression chamber. It had a window. And I don't know what possessed me to watch as about 7 dogs died inside that machine and then were thrown into a furnace. But at that moment in time, I really had this wake up call. It was like that death was so unnecessary. It was because of people being irresponsible. This was before they had the internet, before spay neuter campaigns, before all of that. Um, and it was just people being irresponsible. And then I just had this sudden realization, wait a minute, when I eat meat, I am causing the suffering and death of an animal. And so it just hit me and it changed my life forever. And it's changed a lot of other things because of, the butterfly effect. And so, um, my stepson was in school. There were no vegan options. And my friend and I, my dear friend Jennifer Green from Long Island, and I decided to join the PTA at the local elementary school. And we worked together to get vegan food on the menu every day. So that was really great. And then I had an opportunity to write a New York State legislative resolution that encouraged plant-based options on school menus. Now, a New York State legislative resolution, it's not a law, it's a recommendation. But it gets introduced and voted on the same way a law does. And this was in 2004, and it passed unanimously. And so then one of the people who was involved when I was writing this resolution and I decided to start a nonprofit that would implement the recommendations of the resolution.
Let me stop you. Let me stop you because I want to go back to get a clearer understanding of this. So you and your colleague, did you say Jennifer Green?
Jennifer Green.
Shout out to Jennifer. I got to make a shout out. We say somebody's name. I feel like we got to say hello. So you start to work on this project, and you said it's not legislation, but it's a resolution. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, give us a little back. So a lot of what we do on the other show, Professionals and Animal Lovers show, my partner Valerie Heffron and I, we talk about learning, educating, and advocating. So, and some of the things we talk about is foiling, not just something to wrap leftovers in, but the Freedom of Information Law, Freedom of Information Act. So we talk a lot about this stuff on the other program. So I said to you when we first started talking, got to get you on that show too, because a lot of what you're saying, really is on the fence of both of my programs. You have the nonprofit and you have the animal advocacy and things like that. But I want to go into that. So what does that look like? What did you have to do in order to get this resolution passed?
Well, first we had to identify people who would be sponsors of it. And so I reached out to Ken Lavelle, who is the Republican state senator from Long Island. And he was a huge advocate for the environment. And I knew him because I had worked with him when I worked for an environmental nonprofit. So he was the first one I reached out to, and he was very supportive. And then the other person was the Democratic Assembly person from New York City, Felix Ortiz. So they both agreed to be sponsors, and they got other people to sign on as sponsors. And I worked with the legislative office. There's a legislative legal office, and we worked on the language together. And then it gets introduced, like I said, the same way that a law gets introduced. It has to go through the committee, and then it gets voted on the same way a law gets voted on. It's just there's nothing that's mandated there. It's really serves an educational purpose. It's a recommendation.
It's a
So the
recommendation.
recommendation was to add vegan entrees to school menus, and where nutrition education occurs, to include nutrition education about different eating styles, including vegan and multicultural, eating styles from different cultures.
So, okay, so now we have a resolution and or recommendation, and now we say, okay, that's great, but we need somebody to actually get out there and practically help implement this. This is what I'm hearing. So
Yes,
I'm putting the kind of the Lego pieces of the puzzle pieces together in my mind, Amy. That sounds like, well, we need some kind of body to go out and do this thing. Is that why the nonprofit gets formed? Is that what happened?
right. It was to implement the recommendations of the resolution to keep it alive. Okay,
Oh,
once it's voted on and it passes, then what?
yeah, right. What
It,
happens?
it's filed somewhere.
Right.
Now we need somebody to actually educate people about it and try to get these recommendations implemented. And so that's what the Coalition for Healthy School Food does.
I'm just like, I've over the years changed my diet in a lot of different ways. I went to I all raw fruits and vegetables on different occasions and things like that. And then I went to a Red Bull diet where I just drank Red Bull most of the time and coffee, and that's not a healthy diet. That's for sure not a healthy diet. I don't recommend that one. I joke a little, but I remember like if I'd get a cold sometimes in my 20s or 30s, I would just say a couple Dayquil and Red Bull, everything goes away, man. That was like that was the mantra. I am not saying you should all go out and drink Red Bull. In fact, don't go drink Red Bull. It is not healthy for you. Don't drink it at all. It's bad for you. Red Bull's going to be coming after me now. But I remember when I was a younger guy, and my wife and I were dating, she still tells this story that I would drink like a six pack of Coca-Cola cans in a day, like no issue. Like just, there's something about the junk food that is put in front of our faces. I remember being in like junior high school, because in my high school we didn't have this kind of stuff, but in junior high school, they had soda machines. I'm going back to like 92, 93. I don't know if they have soda machines in the high schools anymore, but I'll have to ask one of my kids. But just like that was like what it was, junk food and soda at an early age. And um without some, I'll use this word, Amy, without some intervention and education, nothing really changes. It just becomes more of the same, right? So I talk about on this program on Philanthropy and Focus what this is about. This is about organizations that are on the front lines doing the work, making the change. And that's what I'm hearing from your organization, that it's you're in there, you're having these discussions. The website again, gang, if you're only listening and not seeing us, because I will share it when we go to break, but healthyschoolfood.org, healthyschoolfood.org. Amy, we're going to go to break in a second. I will share the website when we go to break, but I want to dive into what this looks like day in and day out, the education, the ideas, who you engage with in the school systems. Do you have the capacity to engage with more school systems? All that sort of stuff. But before that, we got to take a quick break. So we got a lot of stories to tell, and I promise everybody we will navigate and we will do our best to stay on track. But I imagine with Amy's mind and my mind, we may be outside the lines a little bit. Welcome to Philanthropy and Focus. It's only been like that every week, so you keep coming back. There must be a reason for it. Amy, we will be right back. We'll take a break and we will continue when we come back. Thanks, everybody.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Wow. People have been joining me in my attic for a long time. In fact, when we were beginning the show today, someone tried to join me in the attic, and I had to quietly ask that person to leave so we could do our live show, Amy. The mission of the organization, the Coalition for Healthy School Food, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that introduces plant-based foods and nutrition education in schools to educate the whole school community about the health, environmental, and social justice issues of our food choices. Wow. Let's get into it, really. I mean, I joked a little bit in the last segment about, my own diet has ebbed and flowed over the years. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. But I always known to get to the green foods, and the fruits and veg. And my wife loves when I say veg. She hates when I say that word veg. But the fruits and the vegetables, are really paramount. I was watching something this morning where this man was talking about how when you eat spinach, it starts off all these different cycles in our system that creates different cycles in our system. And, it's not just that the spinach is changes everything, although it does change a lot, but it's what happens after that, all the reactions versus, I would say, and this is not what the man was talking about on the podcast, versus putting in Coca-Cola and Red Bull and fried foods and stuff like that, which puts off its own chain of reactions in a negative situation. So, Amy, I'm kind of just setting up a lot out there, but I want to understand, it started off, you said, because your stepson had no options when he was going to school from a vegan perspective, right? So that's the catalyst, right? And then obviously your background in other things, you go, I assume you go, well, I can tackle these issues. Let's get after it, right? Is that how it went?
Basically, I was just really passionate about it. I myself adopted a vegan diet in 1989, and I had been vegetarian for 10 years before that. Once I realized what they did to dairy and eggs, and that those animals all end up getting killed also, I gave those up as well. So vegetarian in 1979, vegan in 1989. So it's been 35 years and as a vegan. And obviously we all need fruits and vegetables and lots of them. But our bigger focus, because schools do have to offer fruits and vegetables and whole grains to some extent. So our bigger focus is replacing the meat and the cheese with beans and lentils and tofu and other of the higher protein foods. Now, that said, our entire society is obsessed with protein unnecessarily. Protein is not considered to be a nutrient of concern in the US dietary guidelines. And we don't really need to worry about protein because most people get more than they need. However, in the school meal program, there has to be that category of foods. And so that's where we're more focused, even though we're definitely advocates of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and a little bit of nuts and seeds. It's the main dish focus that we have. And it's really interesting because if I asked you what the healthiest food in the world was, what would you say?
I there's this book I have. I think it's in the attic. I see it. It's a superfood book. I'll grab it during the break. But I think it's kale. I think like it shows like the nutrient density of these different foods, and like kale and these greens and these leafies are like way up top, and
Yep.
then like other stuff that you would think is good. Like let's just say kale is like 1,000 of whatever this unit is. Like eggs are like a 17 or like a 30 or something like that. So I'm guessing it's green leafies, but I'm gonna let you tell me.
Right. So that's what I would have thought too. But it's actually legumes. And legumes,
Legumes.
that is beans, lentils, split peas. And legumes are the food around the world most associated with longevity.
So
So
centenarian, is that the right word? Centenarians? Which word?
centenarians, yes,
Yeah.
the people who live in the blue zones, and
Yes.
um, their diets are heavy in legumes, and that is the food most associated with longevity. And it makes sense because then it's not just, in addition to fruits and vegetables and whole grains, but it's replacing the foods that are known to cause disease, meat, dairy, eggs. And, example, I was just going to say about eggs, the egg industry wants you to think they're really healthy, but they're loaded with saturated fat. They're loaded with cholesterol. They're not healthy. There was a really interesting, we talked about Freedom of Information Act before. There was a really interesting exchange between the Egg Board and the FDA about what the Egg Board could say about eggs. And the FDA would not let them say that they're healthy.
Really?
Really, yeah. You
That's
can look
that's
that
yeah. That piece surprises me because oh man, this is a dangerous one. That piece surprises me because sometimes I don't believe all the things that agencies like the FDA say. But in that sense, it sounds like they were somehow disconnected from the egg farmers in that regard, because isn't this goes to here we go, Tommy. It doesn't this a lot of this go to lobbyists and big money, and big farming and big dairy and big egg, if they call it that, big egg. But all these things that they have all these dollars that they're able to buy off recommendations and things like that. So that would kind of open my eyes with that one. I didn't expect you to say that that they weren't allowed, that the FDA kind of blocked the false advertising, if you will, on that one.
This was years ago, but if you check out the website nutritionfacts.org, nutritionfacts.org, it's a great website and it's there somewhere if you look
We'll
up
check it
egg,
out. That sounds like a good resource.
FDA. Yeah.
Sorry, go right ahead. Please continue.
No, just that's really it's very telling. But if we really, want to know what's healthiest, it's the foods that don't have a big industry supporting them.
It's the foods that don't have a big industry supporting them. Take that, gang. Listen to that. I remember even, this is probably even another misconception. They say stay on the outside of the supermarket, right? Not like outside the building, everybody, but the perimeter of the supermarket. But see, that would be misleading too. And again, gang, I am not a vegan or a vegetarian. played this game at different points in my life, and I do realize that eating that way is healthier for me. And I think after this conversation, Amy, you and I will have to have a deeper conversation when there's not people listening to it, and talk about some lifestyle changes that I feel like I need to make. But I think the perimeter still implies, okay, I'm not going to get the Cheez-Its and the boxed food and stuff like that by the perimeter, but I am going to end up in the dairy aisle. I am going to end up in the meat aisle, right? I think what the big focus from what we're talking about is we're talking about changing the health of people, not just physical health, but mental health, right? And food, what we put in our body affects the output in many different ways. I know it, I think in terms of my children, and say, oh man, they ate a lot of junk food and now they're kind of cranky and stuff like that. And those things, because listen, again, not being a scientist or a doctor, you've obviously done more research on this than I have. However, I just feel we have to think of these things differently. I have to think of different choices. I think automatically of produce. But your point, or not, but also your point is the legumes are a big part of that. So superfoods, right?
And whole grains and nuts and seeds.
Nuts
So all the whole plant foods, what are called whole plant foods. But legumes are more of our focus in the work that we do. Of course, we recognize that vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, and seeds are very healthy. And, of course, some of our main dish recipes, because we do create recipes for schools, contain a lot of vegetables and whole grains as well. But yes, in the supermarket, it is the produce aisle. And then somewhere in the middle is the aisle with all the beans and the whole grains, the nuts and the seeds.
So let's talk about getting into the schools. So the organization is founded years and years ago. You have this resolution, and what do you start to do? What is the first moves with the organization? How do you get into schools? What schools are we talking about? Things like that.
Well, first of all, we do help schools all over the country, but our biggest effort is in New York City. And the first thing that we did was we approached New York City. So we went and sat down with their top level people. And some of those people are still there. And, this is our 20th anniversary this year.
It's awesome.
And
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And so we've known them a long time. And we're friends, and they're great to work with. And they've done a lot of great work in New York City. And really, the rest of the country looks to New York City to see what they do. Because if New York City can do it with the bureaucracy, the necessary bureaucracy that they have, then anyone can do it. Because they're feeding nearly 1 million kids a day. And in terms of the overall bigger picture, we're talking about 30 million children a day eating a school meal in the United States. We're talking about 19 million children a day eating a school breakfast in the United States. And if we're counting individual meals over the course of a school year, it's over 7 billion. And so...
Wait a minute, hold on. I got to stop that. I got to stop that. We can't just roll through things like that. 7 billion meals a year that are served in schools.
Individual school meals, more than 7 billion.
That's incredible. Those numbers are unbelievable. I think, there was a show, and maybe I actually really liked this show. I don't know if it got a fair shake, but the guy's name, you're probably familiar with this name, Jamie Oliver. You remember the show, Jamie Oliver? So
yes.
He went into LA school district, and he went into, I think, New York City schools with this intention. I'm gonna have to Google it. We're gonna go to break in a second, but I'm gonna have to Google it because it was so inspiring. And this is going back, it's got to be going back 10 or 15 years ago. And I remember watching it. It was so inspiring because these young people you got to empower people, right? We have to teach people, young people or older people, what to do. And by seeing these great, delicious foods that they were able to make that grew somewhere versus something that came out of a box, it was changing. It was changing the perception of the young people and certainly, obviously, their health. However, in my recollection of the program, it was met with some people pushing back, which I have to ask you, it sounds like after 20 years, you have these great relationships, but none of this is easy. So I do want to come back when we come back from the break and get into the origin of that. If they probably weren't, oh, good, Amy Hanlon's here. Come on in. Let's make the change. We've been waiting for you all these years, 100 years of the New York City school system. Good thing you're here, right? I probably didn't go exactly like that, right?
No, but they were very receptive from the start. They've always been great partners. And so, but I do think like I really appreciate the attention that Jamie Oliver brought to the issue. But definitely there were a lot of mischaracterizations and things that weren't really true in that show that I think to like build ratings.
Yeah,
So
well, again, that's the problem. They're gonna edit like I have this whole idea for this new show. I was talking to some people last night about it, and the thing is, when you're on a network like that, you make decisions up to a certain point, and then other people make decisions, right? It doesn't have to like the only person that makes decisions about this show today is Amy and Tommy, and that's it. Like this program right here. On that, maybe Jamie Oliver didn't have full editorial rules and things of that nature. But I remember the I was so excited to watch that show because I was like, wow, there's really change here. And that's why I'm excited to continue this conversation with you. We do have to this is the one rule I have to follow. We have to take breaks at some point. So I'm going to follow that rule and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
And we are back. We're back. Amy Hamlin is here from the Coalition for Healthy School Food. Amy, let's just get right back into this because I know there's a lot we want to cover today, and I want to make sure you don't leave here leaving words that you wanted to say. I promise you probably will, but let's try to get most of it out anyway. Let's do our best to do that. So let's get into what happened, when you first met with the folks in the schools, and then I want to know who do you impact, how do you impact them, what the programs are. We're going to do all that, I promise. So you take it away.
Sure. Well, who we impact are, of course, the students, but we also impact the whole school community. So their families and all the adults who work in the schools, including the food service staff. So we go into the schools and we provide curriculum. Sometimes we have a year-long curriculum called Food on Earth, Uncovering the Truth About Food, which is a pre-K through 2 curriculum. And we've been doing that in a lot of schools, reaching thousands of students. And then we have a visiting vegan chef program in the culinary high schools. Sometimes we do cooking courses. Sometimes we do after-school programs. And we do all kinds of special events. We also do family dinner nights where the student plus anyone who lives in their household plus anyone who works in the school comes for a free vegan dinner and a talk by a doctor or a registered dietitian who specializes in plant-based nutrition. And while the adults are hearing that, the kids are off doing a physical activity that incorporates a learning activity. So then when it's time for the dinner, they're hungry and ready to eat. And so that's the family dinner night. We do lunch and learns for teachers and professional development. And we also do trainings for food service staff. And we do work with food service staff to get these plant-based options on the menu.
So here's my question. First, I want to talk all about the family dinner nights, but the question that comes up for me right away is, um, I would think in a lot of cases, unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how someone looks at it, we live in a capitalist society. Okay. So when you said over was it 700 billion? What was the number again?
No, over 7 billion individual school meals served in the United States per year.
Okay, over 7 billion individual school meals. I mean, 1 million students in New York City alone.
Times 180 school days.
So they're gonna say, somebody's gonna say, well, hold on, Amy. I mean, your ingredients cost more. This plant-based concept that you have, cardboard pizza, and French fried potatoes. I've all of a sudden I almost was going to go into Cheeseburger in Paradise by Jimmy Buffett. That's, if you don't know that song. If you know the song, you're laughing now. If you don't know the song, Google it. But French fried potatoes, like, ultimately somebody's going to say to you, is this going to cost us more money, Amy Hamlin?
Right. And the answer is all of the schools that have done it so far find that it costs either the same or even less, because they have to offer fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Those must be on the menu. So really, to make a vegan entree, we're talking about switching from meat or cheese to beans or lentils or tofu.
Okay.
And beans and lentils and tofu are cheaper than meat and cheese. Now, the challenge is that schools are provided with what are called USDA foods, a certain amount of USDA foods, which are essentially free except for a small transportation and storage fee. And a lot of those make it easier for schools to serve more meat and cheese. But they also offer through that program beans. And so, yeah, ultimately it's either cost neutral or cost savings. And I want to bring up really quick that in New York State, we're trying to get a law passed that would require schools to provide a vegan meal upon prior request for students that need it. And this is really important because school meals are very much an equity issue. Families depend on these meals. And if their child can't eat a meal at school, then it's an extra financial burden on them. So meanwhile, you have our tax dollars providing meat and cheese to schools and other foods.
Mhm.
But then you have children who don't eat those foods, who aren't able to eat lunch at school. So the regulations allow for vegan meals, except that cow's milk must be offered, although it does not have to be taken, but it must be offered. And to have non-dairy milk is problematic because the school may, but is not obligated to provide it with a doctor's or parent's note. The reason they're not obligated to is because they get no extra reimbursement, and it does cost more.
So here's the thing. So I drink my coffee, and I drink tons of coffee, and I drink it with almond milk. Or my new fave is oat milk. I love oat milk. Actually, here's the funny part about it. So back to Professionals and Animal Lovers show, I was with our friend John DeLeonardo from Humane Long Island. I don't know if you know John, but you should know John. Zoologist, incredible advocate. We were out in front of Starbucks handing out different coffees on a little bit of a protest, and somebody in his life, I won't say who it was dressed up like a cow, and we were out in front of Starbucks on Long Island because they have an upcharge when I get my oat milk, or if I want almond milk, they have this upcharge there as well. So there's obviously this whole talk about disparity piece and equity and things like that. Now, listen, maybe I'm a little bougie, so I can afford the upcharge or whatever for my coffee, my choice of non-dairy creamer, if you will. But the point of it is, I used to drink a ton of half and half, Amy. I don't anymore. I don't. We're like, my kids were raised on almond milk. Like, I didn't get into this. We're not vegan or vegetarian, but we raised to the point where my mother-in-law had the kids when they were little, and one of them said, Grandma, is this cow's milk? And I think my oldest was 4 at the time. And my mother-in-law goes, yes, it is cow's milk. She goes, well, we don't drink cow's milk. So she had to just let my mother-in-law know how it was. That went well. But there are a lot of options. I want to go back to this piece about equity because you talk about now if many folks by religion are vegan or vegetarian, right? So, that tells me, there are obvious dietary restrictions. So now a lot of children get their meal, at least one meal, sometimes two from the school. But your point is, if they go to the school and there's not an appropriate meal for what their needs are, their dietary restrictions or choice or whatever it might be, well, now that meal has to be subsidized somewhere else, meaning mom and dad got to figure out, or guardian has to figure out how to make that meal happen. So they don't get the same quote unquote benefit when the child and family doesn't get that benefit when they go to school, right? So that's a big thing to hear about.
It is a big thing, and a little bit more about the equity. It's not just about religion, but persons of color. So, for example, African Americans are the fastest growing demographic of vegans in the country and have been for many years, largely because of the hip hop movement. There was a great article about it years ago in the Washington Post, and and persons of color are naturally lactose intolerant, and so more than 50% of persons of color are lactose intolerant. In fact, about 95% of people of Asian descent are lactose intolerant, East Asian descent.
95%? 95%?
Around that, yeah. And so that's why you don't see dairy in like Chinese and Japanese cuisine and other East Asian cultures. You don't see dairy in those cultures.
Wow.
And so the bottom line is that it's normal to not be able to digest milk after you're weaned. I mean, milk.
Why? Wait, hold on, Amy. Hey, Amy, I don't understand, Amy. That doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't my body be able to digest milk and dairy that comes from another animal? I don't get it. Please explain that to me. I don't understand.
So mammals make milk for their babies. They make milk for their babies, and they make milk that's especially for their own babies. And then when their babies don't need it anymore, they lose the ability to digest it. And so the only reason that white people, only 20% of white people are lactose intolerant, that's because white people have a genetic mutation that allows them to continue digesting dairy. But actually being lactose intolerant is actually a normal condition. And most of the world's population cannot digest dairy after weaning, nor are they meant to be consuming the milk of another species, because a really interesting fact is the amount of protein in a mammal's milk is directly related to how quickly they double their birth weight. And so rats are mammals, right? And rats grow pretty quickly. So what do you think the percentage of protein is in rat's milk?
I guess it's higher.
It's higher. It's 45%.
So if you're saying if we really want to get the protein from milk, we should switch from cows to rats, is that what I'm hearing?
That must be it. No, no, I don't want to abuse rats either. So, but cow's milk is around 35% protein. And what do you think humans' milk might be?
Well, it's something about the birth weight. I don't know. I'm going to let you tell me.
Okay, it's 5%.
5%.
5% of calories from protein in human breast milk. 5%. 5%
of calories from human breast milk, versus 35% in cows and 45% in rats. Do you know how there's an epidemic in this country? And I fortunately have a mute button on when I'm doing shows and I'm doing meetings and stuff like that, because I feel like as a species are clearing our throats more than ever. This whole thing, like the entire society is doing it. And I realize personally that it happens more when I drink milk, and dairy milk, that is. And it's that constant clearing of the throat. I don't know if you, again, neither you or I are doctors, right? But maybe there's something there to the amount of dairy we intake that we're constantly clearing that. I'll use the word, it's that phlegm where we're constantly clearing. Right. I don't know what you have on that one, but it's just coming up for me to say.
Well, a lot of people say that. And I mean, the fact is that all animal products put things in our bodies that we don't need.
Right.
too much cholesterol, too much saturated fat, and no animal products have fiber. Whereas plant foods all have fiber,
Right.
and as long as they're not refined, not like white sugar or white flour, but whole plant foods are loaded with fiber. That helps us go to the bathroom. And
Yeah.
it's that fiber that makes our guts healthy, the microbiome in our guts, which is a major part of our immune system. And so here's a fascinating piece of research that found during the pandemic that vegans had a 73% lower risk of moderate to severe COVID.
Really?
73% lower risk, and pescatarians had a 58% lower risk than omnivores because their gut microbiomes were so much healthier from all the fiber, and therefore their immune systems were much stronger. So
Yeah. I just say, like, I mean, I'm thinking about the thing you said. First of all, obviously your gut, it's your microbiome and how healthy are you. It's really, it all stems from your gut. The thing that's like, how obvious is some of this stuff? You talk about the Asian cuisine and you don't see dairy in there. If you look at the standard American diet, it's not like, should we put cheese on it? It's like, how much cheese and how many different colors and varieties of cheese can we get onto this entree? And that's not to knock our whole cuisine here, but sometimes you go to if you go to the store, they put cheese in the burger before it's cooked. Like it's it's not enough to just put it on top. All that cheese cannot be good for you. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna put it out there, Amy. Too much cheese. That's it. That should be the tagline for one of my shows. Too much cheese.
The amount of cheese in the American diet has dramatically gone up. It's the biggest source of saturated fat in the diet. It's also one of the very biggest sources of sodium in the diet. It's very unhealthy. But here's the thing, because vegans don't suffer. I mean, you can eat a whole food plant-based diet and normalize your high blood pressure or your high cholesterol in 2 to 3 weeks on a whole food plant-based diet. Now, that's not just a vegan diet. It's where you're not eating processed foods, you're eating whole foods. Whole food plant-based is the thing to look up. You do that completely for 2 to 3 weeks, and you can normalize your cholesterol and your high blood pressure, except in a very tiny percentage of cases.
So that's incredible, though. That's incredible. We got to go to a break in a second, but that's incredible because the alternative is, well, your cholesterol's high. We got to get you on this statin, and like that's a quick move, right? Like everybody's going to be my enemy by the end of this show today, Amy. I feel it, but like that to me is that one is ridiculous right away. Got to get to the pill, right? That's a whole societal issue. We could talk hours on that one. 2 to 3 weeks, you said, except in very limited cases, it doesn't work. But in majority of cases, a whole food plant-based diet, a specific diet, which I'm sure you can share with us. Is there something, where would you send us if we wanted to see what that diet looked like?
One is nutritionstudies.org, which is the Center for Nutrition Studies led by T. Cullen Campbell, who just turned 90.
Just turned 90.
And, just turned 90. And he's the author of the China Study, a book.
I know the China.
It's not just about the China Study, but so Center for Nutrition Studies is a great place and has a very good explanation of what whole food plant-based means. But also vegans in general, even vegans eating junk food vegan diets, like vegans averaged are the only dietary group that falls within the healthy BMI range on average. And so that's body mass index, which is not the perfect measurement, but they're the only group that does. And overall, vegans have less of the diet-related diseases, less heart disease, less type 2 diabetes. By the way, the whole food plant-based diet can also reverse type 2 diabetes in about 3 months. That's what Mayor Eric Adams did.
We got to pause because there's going to be no time for us to finish off the show after the break. So we got to pause and come back. Mayor Adams reversed type 2 diabetes. You said, I didn't know that. Gang, inflammation is a big problem in our bodies. And you know what? When you put things that don't belong in your body builds up mucus around it because it's inflamed, because it's not good. So it wants to get rid of these things. I am not a doctor. I just know that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Amy Hamlin and Tommy D. Amy, here's the deal. You're going to have to come back in a couple of weeks. We have to do a second show. That's just how it works here when we run out of time. Amy Hamlin and Tommy D, take a quick break.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That's right. Your boy, the one and only nonprofit sector connector, Tommy D. That's what I call myself, gang. We are back. Okay, Amy Hamlin, this is the lightning round only because we have no time and a lot to say. I need to know this. First of all, you got to connect with my partner, Valerie Heffron, in our show, Pals, Professionals and Animal Lovers. We're about to launch a whole society. We have a lunch on June 27th. I want you to be there as my guest. It's out here on Long Island. It is an advocacy lunch for people in the animal advocacy world. I think you would add so much value. I'd hope you could be there. Gang, if you want to find out about that, go to pal-show.com, pal-show.com, or hook up with Tommy D. That one's actually Tommy D at pal-show.com if you want to find another email for the kid. Amy, how can we help? What's going on? I mean, there's tons of sponsors on your website. I don't know that we'll have the time to shout them all out, but I want to make sure, I like to say, we leave it out on the field. Get it all out there so people know how to connect with you and what they could bring to you.
Well, thanks for asking, because there are a lot of things we can use. First of all, we're a fairly small organization, and yet we've had a huge impact. For example, the Plant Powered Fridays in New York City we're the nonprofit group behind that. So we have more requests for services than we can provide. And so therefore, we need the following. We need board members. We need volunteers. We need donations. Volunteers could be grant writers, but we do need donations, and you can donate like once a year, or you can donate monthly. You can do that at the homepage of our website. We need businesses who would like to be sponsors. Sponsorships start out at $1,000 a year and include your link, a logo and a link on our homepage, and in each of our monthly newsletters, and in some of our social media. And so sponsorship, healthyschoolfood.org/sponsorship. And we want you to attend our exciting vegan food tasting event, which will be on October 24th in New York City, Upper West Side. And there's not a lot of details on our website yet, but if you go to our website, healthyschoolfood.org/vegan food tasting. And then we want you to sign up for our newsletter, which you can do on the homepage of our website.
That's a lot of information. October 24th. So it's funny because we were going to have you come on the show in August, like you and I, when we first talking about this or September leading up to the October 24th event. I was like, dude, just come back. It's like, do this now and then we'll do it again later. It's just how it goes. I want to invite you. It's short notice, but if you're available next Wednesday night, Amy, the Long Island Imagine Awards at Crest Hollow Country Club. I'll get you sorted out with the team from Sereni and Associates. If you can, text me later. We'll talk about it. But this is like me inviting you, and it's also another promotion piece for the Imagine Awards. You must find out about the New York City Imagine Awards because you need to fill out some applications for the work you're doing. Volunteers, grant writers, sponsors, obviously. I mentioned the Imagine Awards. Here's what I want to do. I want to come out one day when you're doing the Amy Hamlin show, whatever that looks like. And when you're in schools, I want to come out and I want to play and be there with you and record some of this stuff and maybe turn it into some kind of show, some kind of segment that shares the great work that your organization is doing. So let's talk about that offline. It's kind of this new project I want to do where I just go out there and there's this whole like interactive thing where I'm involved in helping promote the great work that nonprofits are doing because I'm out of breath because the work that you do and the work that other leaders and nonprofits do is so important. And I've become just really focused on this is my mission. This is my journey is to help tell these stories. And I think the next iteration of that is where I do it in person and we have a whole TV show kind of thing out of it. So I'm letting the cat out of the bag. I spoke with some folks last night about it and I'm very fired up about that. Do you know the team over at Rethink Food, Amy?
I'm familiar with it.
We got to get you connected to them. That's actually something I'm working on. So we'll get you connected over there. I want you to connect with the Nonprofit Resource Hub, which I think I shared with you, gang. If you're not connected with the Nonprofit Resource Hub, everybody else listening, nonprofitresourcehub.org. Because the resources you're talking about, the volunteers, the grant writers, the sponsor relationships, a lot of that is what we do at the Resource Hub, and I'm one of the founders there. Amy, how do they get in touch with you if they need to connect with you? Last thing, and then we're going to go.
Sure. If you go to healthyschoolfood.org and then click on contact. It's real easy to find, and you'll find email, phone number, text me.
I will share. Is that that's your cell right there that they on the site so they can?
Yep. My cell phone's on the site.
I'm going to share that. So you'll see it, everybody. That's the website there. Oops. That's the website there. Amy Hamlin, Executive Director. Kelly Wynn, Program Director. All the contact information is right there. Coalition for Healthy School Food. Amy, thanks for being my friend. Steven Simic, thanks for making the introduction. We're going to do some cool stuff together. I tell you this, Amy, I really want to learn more from you about changing my own lifestyle because I could use some extra energy. And the fact that some of the things, a whole food, plant-based diet can get your numbers in order inside of 2 weeks, and we can reverse diabetes inside of 3 months, gang. What are we talking about, man? Big pharma. Sorry, gang. It's not all about you. It's about human beings. Amy, make it a great day. Everybody else, check in. We'll be back next week. Philanthropy in Focus.
Thank you so much, Tommy.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy